The Galactic Council's amusement. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with barely contained laughter. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic hums. At the center of attention sat a small delegation from a backwater planet called Earth. Commander Blake sat straight in his chair, flanked by Dr. Wells and Captain Torres. The humans looked tiny compared to the towering Vorthon delegates with their crystal bodies, or the massive Grell warriors whose scales gleamed under the chamber's lights. Even the smallest aliens present dwarfed the human representatives. "Let me understand this correctly," rumbled Overlord Thex, the current council speaker. His four eyes focused on the humans with what could only be described as amused condescension. "Your species wishes to join the Galactic Defense Alliance?" "That is correct," Blake replied calmly. "Earth has developed significant military capabilities and would like to contribute to galactic peace." A wave of chittering laughter rippled through the assembly. The insectoid Kythera delegate's antennae twitched with mirth. "Military capabilities? Your planet hasn't even achieved proper spaceflight. You barely managed to crawl to your own moon." Dr. Wells leaned forward. "We may be new to space travel, but our defensive technologies are quite advanced. We've been preparing for this moment for decades." "Preparing?" The Zentari representatives' tentacles writhed in what their species considered hilarious. What could a species that still uses chemical propulsion possibly offer us? We have energy shields that can stop asteroid impacts. We have weapons that can crack planets. Captain Torres spoke up. "Perhaps a demonstration would be appropriate?" The chamber fell silent for a moment before erupting in even louder laughter. Overlord Thex's massive bulk shook with amusement. "A demonstration? Oh, this is rich. Very well, humans. We accept your demonstration. It will provide excellent entertainment for the Council. We'll need coordinates for a suitable test area," Blake said, unfazed by the mockery. "Use the Kepler debris field," suggested the Arcturian delegate, wiping tears from his 6 eyes. "It's full of old shipwrecks and asteroids. Perfect for your little fireworks show." As the coordinates were transmitted to the human ship in orbit, whispered conversations spread throughout the chamber. The general consensus was clear. This would be the most amusing waste of time in Council history. "Tell me, humans," asked the elderly Volcari elder, her voice dripping with false kindness. "What exactly are these advanced weapons you speak of? Explosive projectiles? Chemical warheads?" Dr. Wells exchanged a glance with his companions. "Among other things, yes, we call them nuclear weapons." The laughter reached new heights. "Nuclear weapons!" screeched a plasma-born delegate. "We abandoned such primitive technology millennia ago. The radiation barely scratches our hull plating." "We also have something we call kinetic bombardment systems," Torres added quietly. "Kinetic weapons?" The mechanical collective's representative buzzed with electronic amusement. "Throwing rocks from space? How delightfully primitive." Blake stood up slowly. "If the Council is ready, we can begin the demonstration now. Our ship is in position." "By all means," Overlord Thex gestured grandly. "Let us witness the might of humanity." The massive viewing screens around the chamber activated, showing the Kepler debris field in all its chaotic glory. Thousands of wrecked ships, asteroids, and space debris floated in the designated area, creating a perfect testing ground. "Target locked," came a voice over the communication system from the human ship, requesting final authorization. "Authorization granted," Blake said calmly. "Begin demonstration protocol Alpha." The aliens leaned forward in their seats, some still chuckling, others placing bets on how spectacularly the humans would fail. The viewing screens showed the debris field in perfect clarity, waiting for whatever pathetic display the humans had. "Prepared. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A brilliant flash filled the screens. When the light faded, the delegates expected to see a small explosion, maybe a crater in one of the larger asteroids. Instead, they saw something that made their various forms of blood run cold. The debris field was gone. Not damaged, not scattered. Gone. In its place was an expanding sphere of superheated plasma and dust, growing larger by the second. The chamber fell dead silent. "That was one weapon," Blake said quietly. "We have thousands more where that came from." For the first time in Galactic Council history, no one was laughing. The silence of disbelief. The Galactic Council chamber remained frozen in absolute silence. Not a single delegate moved, spoke, or even breathed. The viewing screen still showed the expanding cloud of plasma, where the Kepler debris field had existed moments before. Overlord Thex was the first to break the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "What did you do?" Blake remained standing, his expression unchanged. "We demonstrated our nuclear capabilities as requested. That was a single warhead with a yield of approximately 50 megatons. 50 megatons? The Arcturian delegate's 6 eyes were wide with shock. "That's impossible. Our sensors showed." The energy output was equivalent to a small star. Dr. Wells pulled out a small device and began reading from it. "Actually, our sensors indicate the blast measured at 2.1 x 10^17 joules. That's within normal parameters for this class of weapon." The mechanical collective's representative processed this information with rapid clicking sounds. "Error, error. Calculation does not compute. Primitive species cannot possess star-level weapons." "We're not primitive," Captain Torres said calmly. "We're efficient. When your species was learning to harness energy shields, we were learning to split atoms. When you were developing faster-than-light travel, we were building fusion bombs." The insectoid Kythera delegate's antennae twitched nervously. "But the radiation signature, it's unlike anything in our databases. What kind of nuclear technology is this?" "Hydrogen fusion triggered by plutonium fission," Blake explained as if discussing the weather. "We call it a thermonuclear device. We've had them for over 70 years now." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The elderly Volcari elder leaned forward, her voice shaking. 70 years? You've had weapons of this magnitude for 70 years? "That's just the beginning," Dr. Wells said, consulting his device. "Again, our current arsenal includes weapons with yields up to 100 megatons, and that's not counting our kinetic systems." "Kinetic systems," repeated the Zentari representative, his tentacles now perfectly still. "You mentioned those before," Torres nodded. "Tungsten rods dropped from orbital platforms. No explosives needed. Just gravity and physics. We call them rods from God." "Demonstrate," Overlord Thex commanded, his earlier amusement completely gone. "Are you certain?" Blake asked. "The debris field was already cleared. We'll need a new target." The plasma-born delegate, who had been so amused earlier, pointed a shaking appendage at the screen. "There, that dead moon orbiting the 4th planet. It's solid rock, completely uninhabited." The human delegation exchanged glances. "Very well. Kinetic bombardment protocol engaged." The viewing screens shifted to show a barren, crater-covered moon roughly the size of Earth's own satellite. The delegates watched with growing dread as a tiny speck appeared in the upper atmosphere. "Tungsten rod, mass approximately 9,000 kilograms, dropped from 1,000 kilometers altitude," Torres reported. "Impact velocity, 11.2 kilometers per second." The rod struck the moon's surface with no flash, no explosion, no dramatic fireworks. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the moon began to crack. The crack spread across the surface like lightning, growing wider and deeper with each passing second. Within minutes, the entire moon split apart, its pieces drifting away into space like a broken eggshell. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates were screaming in their native languages. Others were frantically operating communication devices, likely reporting to their homeworlds. The Grell warriors, supposedly the fiercest fighters in the galaxy, were backing away from the humans as if they carried a plague. "Order! Order!" Overlord Thex bellowed, his 4 eyes never leaving the humans. "How many of these weapons do you possess?" Blake looked at his companions, then back at the council. "Which ones? The nuclear weapons or the kinetic systems?" "Both," Thex said grimly. Our nuclear arsenal consists of approximately 15,000 warheads of various yields. Dr. Wells read from his device. Our kinetic orbital platforms number in the hundreds, each capable of deploying multiple projectiles. The Arcturian delegate stood up shakily. This is madness. Why would any species build so many world-ending weapons? Captain Torres shrugged. We had disagreements among ourselves. Different nations, different ideologies. We built these weapons to deter each other from starting wars. And did it work? Asked the Volcari elder, though she seemed afraid of the answer. Mostly, Blake replied. We haven't had a major global conflict since we developed them. Turns out, when everyone can destroy everyone else, peace becomes the only logical option. The implications of this statement settled over the council like a heavy blanket. A species that had weaponized mutual destruction to achieve peace was now asking to join their alliance. There's more, Dr. Wells said quietly. These are just our conventional weapons. We haven't shown you our experimental systems yet. The terror of understanding. The word experimental hung in the air like a death sentence. Every delegate in the chamber stared at the three humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. The species that had been laughing minutes ago now looked like prey animals cornered by apex predators. Overlord Thex's voice cracked as he spoke. Experimental systems. Blake nodded calmly. Our scientists have been quite busy. Dr. Wells, would you care to explain Project Daybreak? Dr. Wells cleared his throat and consulted his device. Project Daybreak involves focused gamma-ray bursts, generated by controlled antimatter reactions. Think of it as a precision star-killer beam. The plasma-born delegate, whose species literally lived in stellar cores, made a sound like escaping steam. Antimatter? You've weaponized antimatter? Only small amounts, Wells replied modestly. A few grams per warhead, but the energy release is quite substantial. Approximately 9 x 10^16 joules per gram. The mechanical collective's representative began calculating frantically. That energy density exceeds our most advanced power cores by a factor of 10,000. We also have Project Thunderstrike, Captain Torres added. Relativistic particle beam weapons mounted on our deep space platforms. They fire streams of accelerated particles at 99.7% the speed of light. The Cathara delegate's antennae drooped. The kinetic energy alone would be devastating. How do you even power such weapons? Fusion reactors, Blake said simply. Each platform has its own miniaturized star, essentially. We learned to harness stellar fusion decades ago. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Admiral Rex, the most decorated military commander in Galactic Alliance history. His species, the Draconi, were considered the ultimate warriors, and his scarred hide bore testament to countless battles. Humans, Rex growled, his reptilian features twisted with concern. These weapons you describe, they could destroy entire star systems. That's the idea, Torres replied matter-of-factly. Maximum deterrent effect. But the radiation, protested the Volcari elder. The gamma rays from your antimatter weapons would sterilize entire sectors of space. Nothing could survive. Dr. Wells shrugged. War isn't meant to be survivable. It's meant to be avoided. The implications of this philosophy struck the council like a physical blow. These humans didn't just have powerful weapons. They had designed them specifically to make war impossible by making it too terrible to contemplate. There's something else, Blake continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected several hostile fleets approaching Alliance territory. The Void Hunters are massing for another invasion. This news sent fresh waves of panic through the chamber. The Void Hunters were a nightmare from the dark spaces between stars, a machine race that consumed entire civilizations to fuel their expansion. The last time they had attacked, it had taken the combined fleets of 50 worlds to drive them back. How many ships? Admiral Rex demanded. Our long-range sensors count approximately 10,000 vessels, Blake reported. They'll reach the outer colonies in 3 weeks. The chamber erupted in desperate chatter. The Void Hunter fleet was twice the size of the force that had nearly destroyed the Alliance before. Even with every available ship, The odds looked hopeless. "The Alliance fleet can muster perhaps 3,000 ships," Overlord Thex said grimly. "We'll be outnumbered more than 3-1. "Not necessarily," Blake said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "Explain." "Earth would like to contribute to the defense," Blake continued. "We have 12 ships ready for deployment." The silence that followed was different from before. This time, it wasn't shock. It was calculation. Every delegate was trying to figure out what 12 human ships could possibly do against 10,000. "Void Hunter vessels," Admiral Rex spoke first. 12 ships against 10,000? That's suicide. Captain Torres smiled for the first time since the demonstration began. "Admiral, with respect, you're thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Our ships don't fight like yours do." "What do you mean?" Rex growled. "Show them the specifications," Blake said to Dr. Wells. Wells activated his device, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The assembled delegates stared at the technical readouts of human warships. What they saw defied everything. They knew about space combat. Each human vessel carries 500 nuclear warheads, 50 antimatter torpedoes, and 12 relativistic particle cannons, Wells explained. They're also equipped with kinetic bombardment systems and something we call planet crackers. Planet crackers? The Zentari representative's tentacles had gone completely rigid. Specialized warheads designed to destabilize planetary cores. Torres explained casually. "We developed them in case the Void Hunters tried to use captured worlds as staging areas." The chamber fell silent again. The aliens were beginning to understand that these humans didn't just fight wars. They fought them with the intention of leaving nothing behind for the enemy to use. 12 ships, Admiral Rex repeated slowly. "You really think 12 ships can make a difference?" The battle that ended wars. 3 weeks later, the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance gathered at the edge of the Nexus system. 3,000. Ships from dozens of worlds formed battle lines, their energy shields glowing like stars against the darkness of space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, and it looked pitifully small compared to the approaching Void Hunter armada. Admiral Rex stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, watching the tactical displays with growing dread. 10,000 enemy vessels moved through space like a metallic plague, their dark hulls absorbing light and hope in equal measure. Each ship was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. "Where are the humans?" demanded General Voss, the Grell commander whose warriors had never retreated from any battle. "They promised 12 ships. We need every vessel we can get." "They're here," Rex replied, pointing to a small cluster of contacts on the edge of the sensor grid. 12 ships, as promised. The human vessels were unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. Where alien ships were graceful curves and artistic designs, the human ships looked like flying weapons factories. Angular, brutal, and covered with launch tubes, gun turrets, and sensor arrays. Commander Blake's voice crackled over the communication system. "Alliance fleet, this is Human Task Force Alpha. We're ready to begin operations." "Commander Blake," Rex replied, "you're outnumbered 800-1. Perhaps you should coordinate with our battle groups." "Negative, Admiral. We'll be operating independently. Our tactics require different approaches." Before Rex could respond, the Void Hunter fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced across space, striking the Alliance shields with devastating force. The first line of defense began to buckle almost immediately. "All ships, return fire," Rex commanded. The Alliance fleet responded with their own barrage, but their weapons barely scratched the Void Hunter armor. The enemy ships continued their advance, closing to within striking distance of the outer colonies. Then the human ships moved. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The 12 human vessels didn't charge forward like heroes. They didn't form up with the Alliance fleet. Instead, they spread out across a vast area of space and began launching something the aliens had never seen before. "What are those?" "General," Voss asked, staring at the tactical display. Hundreds of small objects were streaming away from the human ships. too small to be traditional missiles. Captain Torres answered from his ship. Nuclear cluster munitions. Each warhead splits into 50 smaller devices. We're deploying about 6,000 warheads per ship. The math hit Rex like a physical blow. 72,000 nuclear weapons, all aimed at the Void Hunter fleet. That's impossible, protested the Zentari fleet commander. Our shields can handle nuclear explosions. The radiation won't penetrate our armor. You're right, Blake replied calmly. Conventional nuclear weapons wouldn't be enough. These aren't conventional. The first wave of human weapons reached the Void Hunter fleet. Instead of the small explosions the aliens expected, space itself seemed to catch fire. Fusion reactions cascaded from ship to ship as the thermonuclear devices detonated in perfect sequence, each explosion triggering the next in a carefully calculated chain reaction. Within minutes, the front third of the Void Hunter armada simply ceased to exist. By the Void, whispered General Voss. They're not just using nuclear weapons, they're using them to create artificial supernovas. The surviving Void Hunters tried to scatter, but the humans had anticipated this. The second wave of attacks came from a different direction entirely, relativistic particle beams that struck at nearly the speed of light. The enemy ship's armor, designed to withstand energy weapons, proved useless against streams of matter moving at impossible speeds. More ships died, then more. The Void Hunter fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, was being systematically dismantled by 12 human vessels. Alliance fleet, stand clear, Blake's voice commanded. We're deploying antimatter torpedoes. Rex watched in horrified fascination as tiny specks of light streaked toward the remaining enemy ships. When they struck, the explosions were visible from 3 star systems away. Matter and antimatter annihilated each other in perfect conversion, of mass to energy, releasing forces that made traditional weapons look like firecrackers. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the Void Hunter armada was gone. Not defeated, gone. The only evidence of their existence was an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and debris. The Alliance fleet hung in space, stunned. They had prepared for the fight of their lives against impossible odds. Instead, they had witnessed the most one-sided slaughter in galactic history. Human vessels, Rex said finally, his voice filled with awe and terror. Confirm enemy status. Enemy fleet destroyed, Blake reported. No survivors detected. We're now scanning for their home base coordinates. We estimate it'll take 3 days to reach their staging area. What will you do when you find it? Rex asked, though he already feared the answer. Blake's response was delivered with the same calm tone he had used throughout the demonstration. We'll end this threat permanently. No species should have to face the Void Hunters again. The new Galactic Order 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The great chamber that had once echoed with laughter at human expense now trembled with whispered conversations about humanity's true nature. Every delegate present had watched recordings of the Void Hunter fleet's destruction, and none could forget the casual efficiency with which the humans had ended a threat that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Commander Blake entered the chamber, flanked by Dr. Wells and Captain Torres, just as he had weeks before, but everything had changed. Where once the aliens had towered over them with condescending amusement, now they shrank back as if the humans carried death itself in their wake. The human delegation will now present their report, Overlord Thex announced, his 4 eyes avoiding direct contact with Blake. Blake stood and activated a holographic display. 3 days ago, our task force located the Void Hunter staging area in the Abyss sector. We found a fortress complex built around a black hole, housing approximately 50 million enemy units. The chamber gasped collectively. 50 million Void. Hunters represented a threat beyond anything the Alliance had ever imagined. Past tense, Dr. Wells corrected quietly. The facility no longer exists. Admiral Rex leaned forward in his seat, his scarred features grim. What did you do? Captain. Torres consulted his datapad. We deployed a single experimental weapon we call a reality ripper. It destabilizes the quantum foam of space-time itself. The mechanical collective's representative processed this information with frantic clicking. Impossible. Such technology would require energy outputs beyond stellar levels. We used the black hole, Blake explained simply. Our device redirected its gravitational field, causing the entire system to collapse into itself. The fortress, the fleet, the staging areas, all compressed into a point smaller than an atom. The silence that followed was absolute. The humans had just described weaponizing physics itself. The Void Hunter threat is eliminated, Blake continued. Our deep space sensors confirm no surviving vessels or installations. The species is extinct. Extinct. The word hung in the air like a verdict. In less than 2 weeks, humanity had gone from being a galactic joke to committing xenocide on a scale that defied comprehension. The elderly Volcari elder spoke first, her voice barely audible. You destroyed an entire species. We ended a war, Torres replied. The Void Hunters had consumed 47 civilizations over the past millennium. They would have consumed 47 more if we hadn't acted. But extinction, protested the Cathara delegate, his antennae trembling. There must have been another way, negotiation, containment, relocation. They were machines, Dr. Wells interrupted. Artificial intelligences programmed for conquest and consumption. They couldn't be reasoned with, only stopped. General Voss, who had fought the Void Hunters for decades, nodded slowly. The humans are correct. We tried negotiation before. They responded by destroying the diplomatic fleet and harvesting the crews for raw materials. The question now, Blake said, bringing the discussion back to the present, is where humanity stands in relation to the Galactic Alliance. Overlord Thex shifted uncomfortably in his massive chair. You still wish to join us? After demonstrating you could conquer us all without effort? Blake looked genuinely surprised. Conquer you? Why would we want to do that? We asked to join the Alliance to help protect galactic peace, not to dominate it. But your weapons, the plasma-born delegate stammered. Your technology. You could rule the galaxy if you chose. Captain Torres shrugged. Rule over what? Dead worlds? Fearful populations? We learned long ago that conquest creates more problems than it solves. It's much easier to have allies than subjects. You speak of peace, Admiral Rex said carefully. But you've just demonstrated the capacity to end civilizations. How do we know you won't decide we're a threat someday? Blake was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. Admiral, every species in this chamber has the capacity for violence. The difference is that we've learned to use our capacity for violence to preserve peace rather than wage war. Mutual assured destruction, Dr. Wells added. We developed it to prevent wars between human nations. Now we're offering to extend that protection to all Alliance members. The implication was clear. Humanity was offering to become the galaxy's ultimate deterrent, a species so powerful that no one would dare threaten the peace they protected. What are your terms? Overlord Thex asked finally. Simple, Blake replied. We want full membership in the Alliance. Voting rights, trade agreements, cultural exchange. In return, we'll provide military protection and share our defensive technologies with member worlds. Defensive technologies. The Zentari representative's tentacles writhed nervously. Shield generators, point defense systems, early warning networks, Torres listed. Not the weapons themselves, but the tools to survive if someone else decides. To break the peace. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Every species present voted to accept humanity into the Galactic Alliance, not because they trusted the humans, but because they feared what might happen if they didn't. As Blake shook hands with the various delegates, sealing humanity's place among the stars, one thought echoed through every alien mind present. They had thought it was a joke when the humans claimed to have advanced weapons. Now they knew the truth. The real joke was thinking that any species could be safe in a galaxy where humans carried the tools to rewrite reality itself. The age of human dominance hadn't begun with conquest or threats. It had begun with a simple demonstration and a promise of protection that no one dared refuse. The end.